When you look at the transfer case, you're going to find that you have this shield making its way around it. Now to access this, we're going to have to remove this shield. To do that, we're going to find 3 10mm headed bolts. Let's go ahead and remove all of them. For this one, I'm going to use a ratchet wrench. All right, there's that one. Now at this point, we can see the transfer case motor. Let's start disconnecting this right up here. I'm going to remove this from the bracket so I can more easily access this area. Now we can start separating this. If you turn it in this direction, you're going to be able to find a little tab under this area. You want to pinch that down, and then you can separate the two pieces. Once you have it apart, you want to give the electrical connectors a good inspection. If you see any funny colors, it's corrosion, and that would have to be dealt with. This looks fine, so I'll go ahead and set this aside. Now let's follow the wiring harness down to this area. Let's go ahead and separate this. Now at this point, we have a little bit more slack with the wiring, which is going to be very important. The next thing that we're going to have to do is start removing our 4 mounting bolts. You'll find one over here next to the catalytic converter. Go ahead and follow that right on over, a second, third, and then right up top is your 4th bolt. Go ahead and use the 10mm to remove all 4. This top bolt has a ground wire. You want to make sure when you go to reinstall this, the ground wire is in the proper position. Of course, we are going to clean it up before the installation. Let's set that aside for now. Remove this bracket, set it aside as well. Let's hold that motor. Now I'm going to gently pry this off of here, being very careful not to damage anything. Now what we're going to do is have this hanging with some sort of bungee cord or even a rope, essentially so we're not putting very much pressure on the wiring. Let's make our way right up here. We're going to remove this 10mm headed bolt and then carefully pull this out of the transfer case. Now we're just going to carefully try to break this free from the transmission. Generally, you can get underneath it with a pick of some sort or even try to twist it to break it free. Once you have it out of there, just give it a quick inspection. Next, let's go ahead and remove our wire loom. We'll reuse that. After that, you want to have a look at your electrical connector again. Go ahead and use some long nose pliers, reach inside there and grab onto one of those red tabs and carefully remove it from the connector. Next, we're going to have to continue with our pick. Before we do anything with the pick, let's have a look at our wiring. You want to find the brown wire that comes down separate from the other wiring. Go ahead and follow that all the way down to the connector. Once you've located where it goes into the connector, go ahead and look on the inside. That's where you're going to find a little pin. Now for the pin, there's a little tab that you can carefully grab onto, pull it down, and then you can gently pull the wire out of here. So with that said, I'm going to carefully put a little tug on the wiring. I'm going to reach inside, grab onto that tab. Once you've loosened that little connector, you can go ahead and pull the wire out through the backside. We'll just give that a quick inspection. Set that aside. Time for our last bolt. Go ahead and use a 10mm to remove this. Time for the pick. Now you want to try to pull this out as straight as possible all the way up against the transfer case flange. Go ahead and pull it down. Give that a quick inspection. Let's remove our hanger. There it is, friends. Now that we have the transfer case shift motor out of the transfer case, let's continue on with a quick inspection. You want to clean and inspect each of the ports where you went ahead and remove those plastic sensors from. Once you're sure both of those look good, let's also take a look at the transfer case where this shaft comes out of. There's a seal there. You want to make sure you don't see any transmission fluid coming from there. If you do, now's a good time to think about replacing that. Let's just wipe this down as well, and then we can grab our transfer case encoder motor. You also want to make sure you inspect and clean the bracket that you went ahead and removed. Okay, let's start preparing our shift motor. You're going to want to scrape down this entire area right here and make sure it's a nice smooth surface. After that, continue on with a little bit of gasket maker, and we're just going to make a layer going all the way around this to help keep moisture out of the area. Now I'll just use a small amount of lube along the shaft here on the transfer case. Now I'm just going to temporarily hang this again, and we'll continue on by installing our sensors. The sensor with the longer wiring harness is going to go closest to where your drive shaft goes in. We're just going to try to sneak it in, push it in straight, line up that bolt hole. Start in that mounting bolt and snug it up. Now let's move along that wire that needs to go into the wiring harness. Go ahead and put it back into the original hole. I'm going to slide it through, listen for a click. There it is. I'm going to give this a little tug to make sure it's completely secured inside. Continue on with the red lock. Make sure you press it in so it's fully level with all of your little pins inside. Now we're going to bring this over a little closer so we can put in our other sensor. Now once you have both of those bolts started and snugged, go ahead and torque each of the sensors to 89 inch-pounds. Now we can reinstall our wire loom. For this, you just want to find an end, carefully start sliding the wires into it. Now we can start putting the shift motor up on here. Be very careful for all of your wiring. You want to make sure nothing's going to get pinched behind there. We're going to go ahead and line this up with the shaft that's coming out of the transfer case. You're going to feel it slide right in. After that, you can line up all of your mounting bolt holes. All right, let's go ahead and get this tin on there. Pull this down. We're going to put this right up here. Now the next thing you want is that ground wire with your upper mounting bolt. Now let's start in all the rest of our mounting bolts. Once you have all of them started in, let's continue on by snugging them up, and then we'll torque each of them to 89 inch-pounds. Now let's reconnect our electrical connector. Listen for a click. Give it a tug to make sure they're both secured. Now once you've done that, continue on putting this back into its plate. Give it a wiggle to make sure everything's nice and secure. After that, you can put on your protective shield with your 3 mounting bolts. Let's go ahead and put the lower aspect underneath the bottom of the transfer case. Slide it right on up and into position. Now we can start in both of our mounting bolts. Once they're all started, go ahead and snug them up. All right, friends, now what you're going to want to do is climb out from underneath the vehicle. Go ahead and start it up. Make sure you don't have any lights come on the dash. After that, take it for a road test and make sure you test your 4-wheel drive on a dirt parking lot.